Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, October 5th, 2023. Let's go ahead and get started. We were closed yesterday, so I want to do as fast of a review as I can, going through yesterday and the day before. Remember, we weren't here yesterday for our pre-market, so we will look and see what I might have told you, but I do want to go back to Tuesday, take a look what happened. So remember when we were looking at the charts on Tuesday morning, what we were talking about is seeing a very typical bearish pattern on the higher time frames. We were expecting the market to push lower. However, in the overnight session or in the pre-market, we talked about seeing a good hourly bullish signal right off of the bounce to the tick off of our scaffolding level. I mean, it came down and made a double bottom on the shorter time frame here, right off of the scaffolding to the tick. And we got a nice hourly signal. So I told you that there might be an attempt to bounce, but we were overall in a bearish market. So we were expecting resistance at some of our critical levels on the chart, some of our roadmap levels, and expected the market to push lower. So what happened here is pretty much exactly what we talked about in the pre-market. We got a nice push out of the open. Again, this was pre-market about 30 minutes before the open. We got the bounce from our expected support level, and again had that hourly signal. We got the follow through for the bounce, and so the market opened, and essentially you could have bought the 200 and rode the push, but then the market came up right into our next scaffolding up here at 43.13, peeked into it multiple times, and then we got the failure from there, and then it was a nice sell-off. In fact, Tuesday for me was a nice, easy day. I was able to get short on this move and capture a nice piece of it. And really, I didn't do anything until after the failure here. So we came up out of the open, right into the scaffolding, and it started to fail. And that's when I was able to get in. And as you can see, shorting the back end of the FMA the whole way down, shorting the back end of the 200, and even waiting for the market to go ahead and break through the low of the day before, for it to push lower by 5 or 10 points and bounce back up, gave you this. And this is like something we've seen multiple times as the market's been selling off for the last few weeks. A nice kiss right to the low of the day before, breaks it by just a couple ticks. And then from there, we get a continued sell-off for the rest of the day. So there were some great opportunities on Tuesday. This is 2 days ago now. To go ahead and short the market, get in with very limited risk. And then even if you missed getting short off FMA or getting short off the low of the day before, when it came back up to kiss right into that level, you got an opportunity for the rest of the day as it started to get more and more bearish to short the back end of the 200 for very limited risk and ride this all the way down. So the market sold off, again, held our roadmap levels beautifully. And then at the end of the day, we got to bounce back up, hold in the top end of the 200 for this little bullish rally, only for it to fail again and hold the back end to come down lower. And as you can see, maybe not the perfect hold off our next scaffolding level. It was just a little messy down here. But at the end of the day, that scaffolding then became the major resistance, and we went ahead and parried off of it multiple times to the tick there and finish the day out. So coming into yesterday morning, so Tuesday night, this is our Globex session from Tuesday night. Here again, and this is like, I feel like every morning I come in and we see the same hold off the VWAP here in the overnight session. Really, I mean, it's like almost every morning. Once the Globex session opened here and it petered out, it was very, very choppy there for the first hour or two. But once we fell below VWAP, you had a great opportunity here. Again, it was in the middle of the night, but we came right to the VWAP, and there was actually a confluence here between the 200 moving average and the VWAP, and a beautiful bearish pattern. If you look here on the 512, nice peak above, right into the 200, and again, just a couple ticks above VWAP, and you could have got a beautiful short in the overnight session and took your profit at the next scaffolding level and got yourself a nice 10-15 point trade there. And then in the overnight session Wednesday, right, going into the morning of Wednesday, We got this beautiful bullish rally holding the FMA, deeper pullback holding the 200, and just getting a beautiful bullish rally throughout the overnight session and then into the pre-market, where again we get these beautiful peaks down right into the 200 for opportunities to buy in that bullish push. And then right at the open here, let's take a look. Now, if we go up to the higher time frames and see what we might have seen yesterday morning if I was here to do my pre-market, this is what we would have seen on the charts. Just so we can kind of get an idea as to what we would have been talking about if we were here yesterday. Well, look at this pattern that we had here off the lows. So this was a test right into our scaffolding level with a beautiful hourly bullish signal. So it was almost like the day before. So just like Tuesday here, where we came in and we were right at scaffolding level within a decent, it looked like a bullish signal on the 60-minute when we were looking at it. And we got the pop right off the scaffolding and then failed off the next scaffolding and continued to sell off. So going into yesterday, we saw a similar pattern. We pulled back in the overnight into a scaffolding, had a bullish signal, started to push, and then just before the open here, we had a little bit of a counter signal. But the idea yesterday was to be long, expecting resistance at one of our levels that we would have had on the chart above us. And let's take a look at what happened. So the market pushed. We got a nice push into scaffolding to the tick as the market opened. So the market pulled back out of the open, bounced. And if you look at this measurement here, that was your typical 50% retrace. Came down, the leg up from the low, came up out of the open, failed, pulled back to 50%, and then continued to bounce higher as the day continued there. So it was actually a little bit of a bullish day. We got more follow through than we expected, but the failure for the biggest pullback of the morning there after the market opened was right off our scaffolding. And this is what is just blows me away, is that the market failed off that scaffolding there, pulled back and bounced to the tick off the next scaffolding for the push out of the end of the day there into the end of the day. And then where did the market fail at the end of the day for its little pullback at the end? That last half hour of the market, right off 50% of this whole sell-off from 43.71 all the way to 42.35. Like, it's just unbelievable how this stuff works. And then that brings us into this morning. So I do want to look at the details from yesterday and take a look here. So we talked about it from a 60-minute perspective. Let's take a look at what happened. So pulled back, was bearish right out of the open, right? And then we got the pop. And it's somewhere in here. Right into our scaffolding up here. So it was probably a little bit difficult yesterday out of the open because it was very choppy, right? We didn't have a super clear picture. Didn't quite hold our roadmap levels really at all. And then finally, about an hour after the open, we get the bullish push, the pullback to the 200 for a great opportunity to get long there. Pulls back, holds the 200 again, holds it again, and then comes right to the scaffolding. And so this was yesterday. The high of the morning was our scaffolding level, only 2 ticks off. And then we got the pullback, interestingly enough, and then here is that pullback right to the next scaffolding. So it was like, again, like you're at the bowling alley, you got the guards up on the sides, and you just throw in the bowling ball, and it's bouncing back and forth between all these levels. So we got hold off the scaffolding, pulled back. It did hold VWAP, bounced, held the 200, and then came right to the scaffolding, and then a continuation for the bull. So we pushed through VWAP, pulled back, held VWAP to the tick, and then continued to push to the next expected resistance level that we would have had on our charts yesterday. And then at the end of the day, again, just crazy, we pull back from that retracement and bounce at the end of the day off our scaffolding level to bounce, almost right back to the high of the day. So really, really cool stuff, if you ask me. It was also the 50% retrace of the day before there, right in alignment essentially with that scaffolding level. So that's how yesterday went. In my opinion, a very difficult morning, right? Because it was pretty choppy. It wasn't really holding our levels very nicely. And then about an hour and a half out of the open, some really great opportunities, right? And that's just how the market is sometimes. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's respecting everything perfectly. And that's what makes trading so difficult. So coming into the open here this morning now, finally, you can see in the overnight session, pretty sideways, pretty balanced. Nothing too notable that happened besides the fact that we pulled back in the overnight session and held the 38 retrace to the tick here for the biggest pullback of the night. We came down, we held the back end of VWAP, except it did peak through by 2.5 points there, maybe even 3 points. So it was a little bit more of a break than I like. And then came down and we bounced again in the overnight session for the biggest bounce right off our 38 retrace. And I'm going to talk about where this retracement comes from and maybe even where this retracement from yesterday came from that I do have on the charts here now. Because we haven't been watching fibs. As the market's been selling off really heavy, we really haven't been looking at fibs to the upside because they just haven't been as relevant. But as of yesterday, we would have had some really nice stuff. So we're going to talk about that in our pre-market here this morning. Let's go ahead and jump up to our higher time frames. Actually, just want to point out here in the overnight session, beautiful hold. So the holy orange power level prints here right at 5 a.m. Central. And what do you know? We get through it, pull back, and we hold it to the tick here for the bounce in this overnight session. They come back down to the downside below it, come up, and now we just held it on 2 tests. So pretty cool stuff. So let's go up to the higher time frames.